Hi, Gary Stearman, and today on Prophecy Watchers, we're going to talk about Israel. And we love to talk about Israel, and we love to talk to one of our favorite friends, Avi Lipkin. And Avi, welcome back.
Good to be
Prophecy
back.
Watchers.
Good to be home.
Good to be home. Good to have you here. And Avi has written a book. I'm going to hold it up, and we'll get a close-up on the screen. It's called Israel's Bible Block, and I thought we might start, Avi, by talking about your participation in Israeli politics and kind of bring us up to date. What's happening there? There's so many things happening at the same time in Israel. I think Christians are very interested in knowing the most important aspects of Israeli society and Israel's modern, if you will, conflicts, internal conflicts. There are all kinds of things going on over there.
Yes, indeed. I've been living in Israel 52 years. I'm American born, as you can tell from the accent. But one of the things I was raised upon was the American Revolution. No taxation without representation. Now, in 1968, when I moved to Israel, there were only Christians, I would say 2%, who were Arabic-speaking Christians, who've been in the land of Israel for 2,000 years, since the time of Christ. But in 1988, 89, 90, with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, we received over 1.5 million Jews and non-Jews from the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. Of those, 400,000 are not Jewish, according to the rabbinate. And together with the 2% population, which is Arabic-speaking, and the 400,000 Russian speakers, there is a constituency there of 8%. And the Israeli democracy is based on constituencies. So, for example, the Muslims have 13 members of Knesset based on their constituency. There's an ethnic group called the Druze, D-R-U-Z-E. These are an offshoot of Islam, but they're not Muslims. They have 5 members of Knesset. And the Christians, who theoretically should have between 8 to 10% of the vote in Israel, have 0. There is no Christian in our Knesset, in our Congress. So I feel that the Lord or God was telling me in 2005, 2006, that we need a political party that will give representation to the Christians. However, I did not want it to be a Christian party because I'm a Jew myself. I believe always in Judeo-Christian partnership, Judeo-Christian alliance. I'm a great supporter of Judeo-Christian Western civilization and democracy. And so it took many years, it took a lot of money, but I hired a team of lawyers. We got the party registered in 2018, and then in 2019 and 20, we actually did participate in 3 elections. So we are registered, we are legal. I have at this time 10 candidates for the Knesset. 5 are Jewish and 5 are Christian believers. And we love each other, we are a team, we work together. I think that from election to election, God willing I should live so long, we will be gaining thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of followers who will vote for our party and give them the representation they deserve and they need in our Israeli political system.
Yeah, and the book is called Israel's Bible Block. And I think that's a wonderful title for a party, Bible Block, because you're gathering around the Word.
Right.
But not everyone believes the same thing.
Well, one of the greatest things about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is that nobody has a monopoly on him. Not this or that Christian group or not this or that Jewish group. Nobody has a monopoly on God. And I feel God is saying to me, unite everyone, bring everyone together, those who believe in God, those who believe in the Bible, and that's what I'm doing.
Now, you are audience. I'm like myself, and I've met many, many, many of you, so I kind of know how you think. As Christians, we are kind of, shall we say, concerned. We fuss a little bit. We worry a little bit about the spiritual life of Israel.
Right.
Because, you know, it's in the Bible. Much Bible prophecy is written about Israel. We are pro-Jewish. They are the ones, you know, that we are rooting for, I should say you. And so when you come and you sit down, you talk with us, we're all looking and saying, okay, what's the Lord doing in Israel right now?
Correct.
Where are things going? And that's the way Christians think.
Yes. Well, one of the things I wanted to stress is that Jewish people who came from the Soviet Union, I don't know the exact percentage, but there was a lot of intermarriage. Jews would marry Russians, Ukrainians, Polish, other groups in Eastern Europe. And when the Jew would flee from Europe and flee to Israel, he or she would take the Jewish spouse with him or her. And that's why we got hundreds of thousands of Russian speakers. Now we have Ethiopian speakers who are Jews. And some of them converted to Christianity 100 years ago, and so they're Christian believers, but they're Jewish by blood. So my political party will embrace them also. I will also tell you that there is a big talk among Hispanics that many of them believe, tens of millions of them, that they are Jewish by blood. They believe in Christ, but they all want to move to Israel. Now, I don't know how that's going to work out, and that'll be a little later maybe, but I think something much more imminent, and that is that our immigration to Israel from America has gone up from 25,000 to 90,000. The estimates are that there will be 250,000, 250,000 people moving to Israel in the next 3 years. That's 80,000, 83,000 a year.
There is an accelerating curve there. Those numbers are mind-boggling.
Right.
But something's driving that.
And not only that, a lot of the Jews who are moving to Israel are married to Christians. So they're not going to leave the Christian spouse here or the children. So we will have an influx of Christians moving to the land of Israel. There is now, sad to say, there are those rabbis and Orthodox leaders who want to change the law in order to make it impossible for Christian believers to move to Israel. And of course, we're going to oppose that. I believe that the Messiah is coming or returning to Israel, to Jerusalem, and not only for the Jews. Messiah is coming or returning for all every knee will bend and every tongue will swear loyalty. And he will be on the Mount of Olives and we're going to check his hands.
Amen.
And so to do that, we have to have Christians living amongst us. We want to maintain a Jewish majority in the land of Israel. But we have to have, it's not just for the Jews. If the Messiah is coming just for the Jews, it's not the Messiah.
I have to break in here just a minute. You were talking about the Mount of Olives.
Yeah.
What a landmark. Maybe the greatest landmark on planet Earth. I was reading in Matthew about Jesus teaching his disciples. They were all sitting on the Mount of Olives, and he was talking to them, and he prophesied about what was coming and what was going to happen in Israel. And it was just so real to sit and reimagine. And why is it so real? Because, you know, I've been to Israel and I've walked around on the Mount of Olives. And that's mind-boggling. And when you mentioned a minute ago, there are two worlds that are coming together here. There's the political world and there's the spiritual world. Jesus said, and by the way, he ascended from the Mount of Olives, and he says, I'm going to come back someday, and he will. And that's why all this is of such interest to us prophetically.
Indeed, politically, I need 140,000 votes to get my first 4 deputies. We go by lists in Israel, you don't by individuals. And so my potential constituencies are 400,000 Russian speakers, 100,000 Arabic speakers, and I speak Russian and Arabic, Hebrew, English. These all have to be spoken. I speak those 4 languages. What I don't speak is the Ethiopian Amharic.
I've heard him speak Spanish as well.
Yes. We do have Spanish speakers, and we will, I believe one day we're going to have millions of Hispanics moving to Israel. And so what's going to happen is, I believe, if I'm 71 now, maybe by the time I reach 80, which is the age when Moses started his ministry, you know, he was sloughing off between 40 and 80, just being a shepherd with Jethro. But at 80, God said to him, go back to Egypt and face off against Pharaoh, who was God, by the way. Pharaoh was the god of Egypt. And face off and tell him, let my people go, so that they may go around in circles in the desert. And that's what I write in my yellow book about return to Mecca. A lot of things are going to change, but everything I am saying is based on things that were written 3,500 or 4,000 years ago. And you want to know what's going to be the future? You got to study the past.
You have to study the past. Now, I'm going to interject here a topic we really shouldn't be talking about at all, but we will. Politics. Because politics are hot in America, and I think that what happens in America affects the whole world,
Correct.
quite frankly.
Correct.
And along with this, if you will, exodus of the Jews that you're speaking of, the Jews going back to Israel, we are now arguing in our society about Marxism.
Right.
And it's rearing its ugly head here.
Yes.
And how's that affecting your life directly?
Well, firstly, let me say one thing. America is the greatest country on earth. America is exceptional. America, for the Jewish people, has been a Garden of Eden. And you really cannot see American Jews getting up and moving to Israel under user-friendly situation.
Right.
But what we see happening now is a dichotomy. The country is splitting into two. Now, one of the reasons I moved to Israel in 1968 was because I saw in New York City, when I was studying at New York University for the first 2 years, I saw the potheads, the dope heads, those who were burning the American flag and waving the Viet Cong flag and everything. But remember, the difference between Jane Fonda and Bill Clinton is that Jane Fonda at least did go to Vietnam. But what was really, really killing me as a Sovietologist, I was studying Sovietology in college, is that you had the communist empire and you had the capitalist empire. And everybody in their right mind understood that capitalism had to win over communism because we knew the horrible things that went on in the communist world. But when I saw these people betraying the United States, I said, you know what, this is a sick country, I'm going to Israel. And so in '68, I moved to Israel. But then when the Lord opened up the doors for me 30 years ago to speak in churches, and I came back, and all of a sudden I see that these potheads and these dope addicts who became deans and professors in the universities were spreading their Marxism amongst the people in college at the time. This was 30 years ago. And today we see riots in the streets of America and the rise of this fanatic, violent socialism in America. This is the result of 60 years of intentional planning by communists and socialists to overthrow Christian America. And strategically, I've been in Israel, 52 years, and I realized either we hang together, the Jews and the Christians, or we hang separately.
Absolutely.
And this is becoming now extremely dangerous with groups are inimical to Judeo-Christian Western civilization and democracy.
And you're listening to Avi Lipkin, and Avi will be talking about his books in a moment, but Avi is well-traveled like nobody you've ever met, and he is not bashful. He has come up against a number of oppositions over the years, and he has turned those into narratives that are very wise, and you'll find those in his writings. And what I gain or glean from Avi most of the time is a little insight into the Jewish mind. And why am I interested in that? Because here's my Bible right here. It's full of Jewish thinking. And I want to know as much as I can about modern Israel. As do most Christians, I think, who are interested in Bible prophecy. We're looking over there. Actually, we pray for Israel.
Amen.
We pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Psalm 122. And why do we do that? Because we know that Israel is going to be blessed greatly one day by the Lord God. And so that's where we're going here.
And Israel belongs to you guys too. Israel is not for the Jews only. And, Christians, forgive me for saying it, are Jews. And by the way, the Muslims say it too, that the Christians and the Jews are one people. We're the people of the book.
Well, it's called the Judeo-Christian
There you got it.
bloc.
And what made America great was Judeo-Christian Western civilization and democracy. But there are those people who mock it and say America is not exceptional. And one of the things I always quote, we've spoken about this many times on your shows, Alexis de Tocqueville in Democracy in America said that America will be the greatest country on earth. This is 1840. America will be the greatest country on earth because the American people are good people and their pulpits are on fire for the Lord. And conversely, when America's pulpits will no longer be on fire for the Lord, America loses its preeminence in the world. And I'm dedicating my life to try my best to ensure that America never loses its fire for the Lord in its pulpits.
And I'm praying for another great awakening, just to let you know where I am. We need an awakening to the reality of the Spirit of the Lord. When it is present and active, everything's going to be okay. You're blessed. When it's pushed away, God being very polite and recognizing, well, you don't want me anymore. I'll just go over here for a while if you don't want me. And he does.
You know, Vladimir Putin said that what made Russia great is its Christianity. I think that should make Americans really consider, where is Christianity in America?
He knew something. That is to say, and it's something that is not usually talked about, that the Spirit of the Lord moves in many ways. When he moves through Christianity, you can see the historical trail of blessing that follows. And that's where we are right now.
And I think it's one of the reasons why America has always been number one. And I want to make sure America stays number one. This is not just about President Trump saying, make America great again. America will be great again and always if it is faithful to God.
Now, let's talk a little bit, for just a couple of minutes, about the things that are happening in Israel right now politically, relative to the United Arab Emirates, some of the things we're reading in the paper. How do you perceive what's going on right now in Israel?
Well, I, of course, support any and every peace agreement as long as Israel does not give up the land or give up its settlements.
Right.
I think Israel has a lot to offer the Arab countries. At this time, the primary offer is a unity and a defense against Iranian Shiite aggression. I think that even Saudis who don't want to admit that they want to make peace with Israel.
Right.
Don't forget the Saudi kingdom is the home of Mecca and Medina, which are the holiest sites for Islam. But the United Arab Emirates are right across the pond from Iran. They are much more afraid of Iran than Israel is. And so I think that what we're talking about primarily here, even though nobody wants to say it, is military alliance between Israel, United Arab Emirates, and America under President Trump gives his blessing to this. I do think there will be other countries. Some are saying Sudan. I don't know exactly what countries they are, but of course it's being kept secret till the agreements are signed. But I do think that there are countries that understand the blessing of Israel. One of the countries, which is not Muslim, by the way, is India. India is suffering from desertification. The desert is very strong in India, and so the Prime Minister Modi and Netanyahu made agreements so that Israel will bring its desalination plants to India to provide the 1 billion Hindus and Muslims who live there, and Christians, desalinated water. Today in Israel, 70% of the water that we drink is desalinated. And so countries that want to provide water for their people had better make peace with Israel and bring over the Israeli technologies to feed the people with this water.
Very interesting. You know, it's the fascinating thing, and when you visit Israel, one of the things that you'll see is that Israel is a garden. And it's a garden, a sort of unlikely garden. How did this happen? Well, it happened because the planners in Israel took a look around at what had been a desert, and suddenly it was growing all kinds of tropical fruit. How did that happen? Well, they managed water in ways that nobody else on earth does. Now, my thinking here is that the Lord showed him that. Here, I've got a secret, guys. Do this, do this, do this, and you'll have all the fresh fruit you can eat. And that's my view of Israel. I think God...
You know, I don't remember the exact verse in Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah, but it says, only when the Israelites, when the Jews come home to the land of Israel,
right,
will the land bloom. And when the Jews were kicked out 2,000 years ago, it became desert and swamp.
It became a desert. And that is an amazing story, which we'll follow up. Right now, I want to pause and show you how you can get Avi's books. In fact, we have 7 books here and a couple of DVDs. And we'll let you hear about how you can obtain those, and we'll be right back.
It's always a special treat when our old friend Avi Lipkin joins us straight from Jerusalem. Avi always provides us with his unique Israeli perspective on world events. A former spokesman for the Israeli Defense Force, Avi has spent the last 30 years traveling all over the world speaking to churches, synagogues, civic groups, and making countless television appearances. He was also one of the few voices in the 90s to warn Christians about the coming terrorist attacks. Over the years, Avi has committed his teachings to paper in the form of 7 books. Never one to shy away from controversy, Avi pulls no punches as he discloses what he feels is the #1 threat to our Judeo-Christian way of life. Soon, the armies of the Middle East will unite to destroy Israel, and Avi's insights on these coming developments will provide you with more pieces of the end times puzzle. We'd love to send you all 7 of Avi's books today for your gift of $79.95 to our ministry in what we're calling the Avi Lipkin package. These resources will open your eyes to sobering facts and perspectives that go unreported in the Western media. These details will prepare you for what is indeed on the horizon. When you give to support Prophecy Watchers, you not only receive these valuable resources, you're helping us further our ministry's mission. An integral part of that mission is actively partnering with men of God who are currently engaged in alerting those who will hear to a number of emerging scenarios. Among those, Israel is the focal point of action. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Call us at the toll-free number on the screen or go to our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv to support this relevant and vital work. Remember, everything that we are doing at Prophecy Watchers is made possible with your support, so stand with us today.
Well, that, I'm sure you'll agree, is an interesting offer, and I wish we had time to talk about each and every one of these books. I go back to this one all the time. Is fanatic Islam a global threat? You know, that's a question you asked many years ago. It's still a good question.
Correct. This is actually my most successful book of the 7 books. It's my first book. It's a very excellent primer for people who know nothing about the Middle East or about Israel or about Islam. And this book explains 9/11 4 years before it happened. And 2 reasons that I knew about 9/11 before it happened, firstly, is because my wife, Rachel, was for 30 years an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government at the radio and TV station, monitoring the broadcasts. And there used to be these news broadcasts in Arabic, and behind the broadcasters, there were these long, elongated calendars in Arabic showing the World Trade Center towers burning. And this was like 5-6 years before 9/11. There was also, at that time, in 1993, 1994, a gentleman who I highly revere, Stephen Emerson, and he actually made a video with the help of the FBI, State Department, and CIA. This was produced by PBS, but then under orders from Clinton, it was suppressed. Jihad in America. And the video at that time spoke about the first attack on the World Trade Center in February '92. And he made this in '93. And he said ultimately that the Muslims, or the Islamic terrorists, better said, are not going to stop until they complete their goal of destroying the World Trade Center and bringing about a crash on Wall Street. The idea was to topple the towers, you know, the planes hit at a certain level, hoping they would topple the towers. And actually, that was a miracle from God, that the towers held for an hour, and that the people under the 97th floor were able to run down the stairs and escape, and then the towers came straight down. Otherwise, if the towers had been toppled, you would have seen 50,000 dead in tower number 1, 50,000 dead in tower number 2, and underneath the toppled towers, another 50,000 each dead. It would have been 200,000 dead Americans. And so even though 3,000 Americans died, and that's a horrible tragedy, but it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse. And again, these things all fit together into a picture. And Avi, I think, has a view of the picture like nobody else. I'm going to turn to this book right now. It's called Return to Mecca. And Mecca is the place to go. You must go there if you are a good, faithful Arab. Muslim. And you must go there and you must march around the Kaaba.
The Black Stone, 7 times.
7 times. And you've written a book about this, and from a perspective that I don't think anybody else ever has. Let's go into that just a minute, because this idea of returning to Mecca is part of a larger series of events that's happening right now in the Middle East.
Correct. One of the things that I say in my book, basically no other Jew in the world is saying it. Some Christians are agreeing with me about what I'm saying. But Moses comes before Pharaoh when he's 80 years old. Pharaoh is God in Egypt. Mm-hmm. And our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the burning bush God, says to Moses, you go and you tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And indeed, in the book of Exodus, it appears 6 times, let my people go. But the first time is different. Now, according to the King James, it says, let my people go so they may celebrate me in the desert. Now, celebrate in Hebrew, many people say is Hag, which is holiday. In Arabic, the word for pilgrimage is Hajj. And in Egyptian Arabic, Hag. So we say in Hebrew, Hag. So it's kind of like Americans, they can't pronounce the J in Spanish, the Jota. So they don't say, no way Jose, they say, no way Jose, with an H,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
We have the same thing in Arabic and Hebrew. So what Moses is saying to Pharaoh, let my people go so that they may go around in circles in the desert, meaning around that black stone. And we have to remember that Jethro was the high priest of Medina, the city of Medina. Midian is Medina. How do we know? You got to know Arabic. When you go to Saudi Arabia, you go to Medina, one of the names of the city is Jethro, Yathrib. So anyone who knows Arabic knows that Medina is Jethro, and Jethro is Medina. And Moses was the understudy. He was a shepherd taking care of the flocks of Jethro. But he learned from Jethro about that black stone. And one of my contentions is that the pyramid of Egypt, the triangle, is a symbol of slavery, but the cube is the symbol of freedom in the desert. And so these are theories that I've developed, which no one else is talking about. And the book is very popular in Saudi Arabia, I want you to know.
Avi does not disappoint. I mentioned that just so you could walk forth with a few little nuggets that people don't usually hear about.
Right.
And that's what you'll run into in Avi's books. You'll run into ideas that you just don't see every day, that you don't hear every day. You know, we're out of time here. I hate it, but we've come to the end of our time together. But may the Lord bless you, and may the Lord bless the Bible Block Party.
And may the Lord bless Prophecy Watchers and you and all the wonderful people here.
Avi, we'll see you soon.
Amen.
And blessings to you all. Things are happening today, and we're going to be progressively more and more attentive to the Middle East. I believe, in fact, that a crisis is on the near horizon. And so does Avi, and we talk about this from time to time. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, you keep watching. We are.